Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Gorodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's public meeting of April 17, 2024. We are going to start with a few quick votes before moving to our public hearings for the day. First up is a vote on a Department of Finance proposal to acquire space for active storage of records and the repair and refurbishment of furniture at 850 3rd Avenue in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Next up, votes on several authorizations throughout Staten Island. In Grimes Hill, 4 new detached homes are being proposed along a new private road called Harbor Lights Court. At 45 Meisner Avenue in Lighthouse Hill, we'll vote to allow alterations to a detached home. At 23 Milden Avenue in Emerson Hill, we'll vote to allow a new retaining wall and in-ground swimming pool. And at 543 Tote Hill Road, we'll vote on an enlargement of an existing detached home and its rear yard amenities. For our public hearings, we'll begin with a presentation and testimony on 2118 Avenue U in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. This proposal is a mixed-use building that would include 10 homes, a third of them income-restricted and ground floor retail. The site is located near the Q train, the B3 and B49 bus stops, and Marine Park. Moving to College Point, Queens, we'll hold a hearing on a commercial overlay to facilitate the construction of a 1-story commercial eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through at 2724 College Point Boulevard. Our final hearing for today, also in Queens, is a proposal to enlarge an existing 1-story warehouse into a 3-story warehouse with an additional loading berth at 5875 Queens Midtown Expressway in Maspeth. The expansion would create around 10 more jobs on top of the approximately 60 existing jobs that are found there today. So with that, Madam Secretary, I turn it to you and let's get the show on the road.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held remotely through the NYC Engage portal and in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Wednesday, April 17, 2024. I will now call the roll. Chair Gorodnick.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin. Present. Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Duick, I believe, is on Zoom.
Here, present.
Commissioner Gold is also on Zoom.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich. Commissioner Kermani. Here. Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Osorio.
Here.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting of Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024.
Great. On the minutes, I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 3rd.
Second.
Seconded by the Vice Chairman. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, the minutes are approved.
Scheduling, calendar numbers 1 through 4. We have resolutions for adoption scheduling Wednesday, May 1st, 2024, for a public hearing to be held in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, and remotely through the NYC Engage portal.
Great. On the resolution, I make a motion to approve the resolution. Seconded by Commissioner Ramprashad. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, resolution is adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 5. Borough Brooklyn, calendar number 5, 850 3rd Avenue DOF site selection and acquisition, CD7 C2400090PCK. In the matter of an application for a site selection and acquisition concerning 850 3rd Avenue, Department of Finance site selection and acquisition. For a favorable report on calendar number 5, Chair Gorodnick.
Aye. Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye, but I would like to say that, as I said during the hearing, I view the use of the Army terminal and these buildings as a problem when they are used for things that are not manufacturing, particularly because we're nibbling away at it. So I will be asking the same questions every time one of these comes before us. And at some stage, if we're not getting any movement on the manufacturing, I'm going to want other answers.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani. Yes. Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
I very much appreciate the information and the clarifications that in addressing all of the questions so far. I know that this takes time, and I very much appreciate it. However, I respectfully vote no, given the location of the property within an industrial business zone and a significant maritime and industrial area. I believe that this use, while allowed, is not consistent with the city's vision for a working waterfront stated in the Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, nor the Waterfront Revitalization Program.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 5. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9. Harbor Lights Court. CD1, calendar number 6, N240108 ZAR. Calendar number 7, N240109 ZAR. Calendar number 8, N240110 ZAR. Calendar number 9, N240111 ZAR. In the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations concerning Harbor Lights Court for the adoption of calendar numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9. Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dueck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9 have been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 10, 11, and 12. CD2, calendar number 10, N240194 ZAR, 45 Meisner Avenue. Calendar number 11, N240071 ZAR, 23 Milden Avenue. Calendar number 12, N240137 ZAR, 543 Toad Hill Road. And the matter of applications for the grant of authorizations concerning 45 Meisner Avenue, 23 Milden Avenue, and 543 Toad Hill Road for the adoption of calendar numbers 10, 11, and 12. Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dueck.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 10, 11, and 12 have been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 7.
Great. Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're going to ask those who are testifying to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. And let's move to the first item on the agenda today.
Borough of Brooklyn, calendar numbers 13 and 14, 2118 Avenue U, CD15, calendar number 13, C230351ZMK, calendar number 14, N230352ZRK. Public hearing in the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 2118 Avenue U. Great. On behalf of the applicant, we have Eric Palatnik and Sean Kim. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Hit the button on the microphone and.
There you go. Good. Well, that didn't need to be, I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Cerullo on his 25-year anniversary of the Grand Central Partnership. It's very impressive. I'm glad I'm here to see it. This is an application that's a great application in the sense that it's well supported by the community board. We've spoken with the council person. She seems to like it so far. And it's a good example, I guess, of what you're going to be up against in the city of Yes as you go out to the communities, because parking is an issue at all times, especially Community Board 15. And I know that you had your review session yesterday, and go to the next slide, please. And you're familiar with the development, and I control the next slide, right? With me? Did I hit it right? No. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Say next slide or hit the button. It should work, right? That's what I thought. Okay. So you can see here on the right side of the screen and the left side what we're seeking to do. It's an R4 district, and I'd like to thank the commissioners yesterday for making the review session, for making a comment about this analogy to town hall zoning. I'd like to think that we came up with the idea before you, since this was pending before you released your idea. But it's a similar idea and something I've thought should be right the whole time, which is you have tremendous amounts of R4s and R5s districts around the city, just like this, that are underdeveloped and have yet 5, 6-story apartment buildings right next door to them. And this is why we brought the application. This is our zoning rationale. If it is to be approved, it'll be, it's a 4-story and penthouse, really a partial 5th floor, 10-unit building with 20,000 square feet, 3.41, not 3.6, but that was a result of our work with the community board, and that could be altered. But we did make a commitment at the community board. It would have 10 dwelling units, and 3 of those would be affordable. It would also have 10 accessory parking spaces. Yeah, your clicker's a little slow to catch on with the rest of the game. This is a picture of the site. Well, it's a picture of the site with the building in place. I believe we have one. I'm not going to use the clicker because it's not. We'll leave it here. I think you know the site and you've looked at all the paperwork. The site is a 1-story sneaker shop right now. It's located, as I mentioned a moment ago, in an R4 district. This is a rendering or an image of the building that would be proposed to be constructed, which should be analogous to the building right next door to it. Go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide. Go a couple slides forward, maybe to an image of the building I'd like to bring them to. Right there is good. You could pause right there. This shows you what the proposed rezoning is. We're asking to go from an R4 to an R6A, maintaining a commercial overlay. And if you can go to an image now, a slide of a picture of the building itself, so I could show them. And then I'll come back to a few more and go all the way forward. An image of the building as it's proposed to be. This is what it looks like right now. But you can go forward. This slide should have the plans themselves. There you go. This is what I wanted to show you what the building looks like. And this is a good image of what town hall zoning will allow for probably when you're done. Next slide, please. Next slide. This gives you a good aerial of the site. The left side shows you the parking garage entrance. It also shows you here that the building is stepped down to accommodate the adjacent residential zoning, lower density residential zoning. Next slide, please. This shows you the cellar level and the 10 parking spaces. You'll also see there's bicycle storage at this level. The next slide, please. The first floor, this is the slide I really wanted to show you. The lobby area was a lot of input from the community. They wanted garbage storage. You could see this, and that's similar to what the City of New York is proposing right now and enacting right now with the Department of Sanitation. There'll be storage. It's outdoors, yet indoors, and that's right, that first vestibule on the right side as you walk towards the building. I'll pause here and I'll answer any questions. I know that I spoke to Commissioner Osario before the hearing, and I mentioned that we have some slides on floodplain if you'd like to see those. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Plotnick. Just why don't you say a minute, you mentioned parking. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and what that dynamic looked like and, what we should be aware of here?
Well, just from my experience when you appear in the outer boroughs, particularly in the ones that are more akin to suburban settings as opposed to an urban setting, there is a tremendous reliance upon an automobile. And as soon as you say that you're building anything, the immediate concerns from the community are that most of the people that will be purchasing, they believe, will have cars. Now, the counter to that I always bring up is, well, that's because most of the audience is my age, and that's who's giving me the comments, or people that are my age. But if you bring my nephew into this situation, that conversation dramatically changes, and the car ownership drops out of the discussion. The problem, or what you're up against, in my opinion, not up against, but the issue is that the community boards, for the most part, are not made up of younger personalities. For the most part, the demographic seems to be an older age range that's appearing at the community boards and representing community boards. So you might not be hearing the conversation from the younger generation, and that's what I always try to bring up, but it's a very difficult conversation to have with people to convince them, especially when you do see that there are also plenty of young people that do have cars. So it's not as if it's a blanket rule any which way.
Fair enough. And I just will note that in the housing opportunity proposal, you would still be able to have, if you wanted it, the opportunity for the 10 parking spaces. We're talking about the minimums, not the maximums. So that's an important point that I'm just going to say out loud and put it out into the world, because I think it's just a really important clarification that we're going to be making when we explain the proposal out in the world, that we're proposing to eliminate costly mandatory minimums as opposed to allowing the discretion for the city or for a developer to explore what the maximum should be, which will continue to be the same.
And that's a valid point and something that I could use in my discussions as well when I'm out there, so thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. So I would like to see the material that you mentioned on flooding, but I would specifically wanted to start with some of the questions that came up at the review session. in terms of the, kind of the discussion in terms of the, why you're not using the full FAR, and specifically the borough president's recommendations to consider reverting the proposal. It sounds like within what would be considered within scope, what would be considered a potential improvement of the proposal might have already been, discussed. And so I'm wondering if you can explain the rationale in terms of that and your response to that specific recommendation to consider adding additional affordable housing units and reducing the number of parking.
And the architect is here as well, Sean, and he could speak to this too, maybe better than I can. But the design that you have in front of you, the Floria, is the result of the conversation that the chair and I were just having about parking with the community. So what we were trying to do is find a common denominator, a common ground that everybody could be satisfied with, that could provide what this community board likes to see, which is Community Planning Board 15 in Brooklyn. When they come in for a discretionary action, the only way they will support a rezoning that I come to you with is with a 1-to-1 parking ratio. That is it. They will not, they have a blanket rule. They will not support, every community has their own demands and their own requirements and their own conditions. If you speak to Ronnie Towell, chair of Community Board 15, he will tell you, we like 1-to-1. So what you see here is the best plan that we could come up with that could accommodate that 1-to-1 ratio. Now, Sean may be sitting here thinking to himself, you want to speak for a second and see if you could, he's okay where he is, but, we're the life of an architect, right? He's probably happier drawing, But the point is he's here for moral support. But the idea of it is that, we had to find that common ground. So I know it's not 3.6. We'd like it to be at 3.6. It still can be. You're approving it at this range. He can still go back and tweak it maybe and maybe find some more space out of it. But this was the discussion we had with the community board, and this is where we settled.
Thank you. I appreciate the transparency in your response. I understand your position. I also want to explicitly say that we shouldn't be planning for the market necessarily. It is a central component to getting things done, for sure, but it's also our role to discuss, okay, how are we going to propose, plan for perhaps changing some of the behaviors that we know are going to be problematic. And so specifically as it relates to parking, also I want to be specifically careful in saying that some people require that parking, and fair enough, that's important. I hear you with that. So in terms of the parking, I understand your rationale, but if we look at the amount of, why are we leaving FAR sort of like on the table if we are at a moment where we desperately need more housing? So I just want to sort of like ask that specifically, but also re-ask the question about parking in the context of how could we maximize what we've been discussing as our ultimate goal, which is to actually provide affordable housing in the city.
I think this project is doing a good job of that. We're trying to find the balance with everybody. We mentioned town hall zoning a moment ago. When we were talking about it in our office, if it was a town hall zoning, there'd be no affordable housing being created out of this. So if the owner said, you know what, forget it, I'll wait, there'd be zero. So there is affordable housing being created out of it. But we do like to respect, the discussions we're having in the community. And it's a hallmark of what I've tried to do in the last 30 years is at least, find some benchmark of agreement with people. And the one thing that the zoning doesn't allow, and it, is any sort of modifications. It's very black and white. It's either you get this amount or this amount. But like the chair just said, it's only a minimum for the parking requirement. And here, this is only a minimum of what the floor area is that we're proposing. There may be a chance to increase it. So if we could give you that much, then I'll ask him to take a look at it again and see if there's a way to do it, maybe get some more units out of it. But we'd like to not go back on our obligation and commitment to the community on what we promised them.
Thank you for that. And I would very much appreciate any additional thinking in terms of increasing the number of units. Thank you.
We'll look at it. You're very welcome. And if you wanted to see the slides, I can't move the screen, but if whoever's controlling the screen, if you can go to just before the pictures of the part of the presentation are images of the flood or lack of floodplain. So if you go just before the pictures.
We're moving.
There you go. I see some of these got them. There you go. Keep going. About 5 more slides back. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Maybe 10. There you go. A few more to the beginning of this series. I think that is, there you go. Go forward now. You're at the beginning. Next slide. Okay. So Sean, the project architect, is here today. We've had previous discussions, so I found it hard to believe when I asked the question that we're not in a high hazard flood zone at all, and this shows you the location of everything. But Sean has designed it in a way that the cellar is wet flood proofed. The mechanicals are all up on the roof. And if you go to the next slide, this gives you some more information to show you the wet flood proofing, green roof, bioswales, equipment up on the roof. And one more slide forward. It shows you our location and proximity to the evacuation center. So just thought we'd provide that for way of knowledge.
Thank you. I commend you on this because not being inside the floodplain doesn't prevent you from doing this. This is forward thinking. This is a responsible thing to do, and I appreciate that. While we're on the topic, are you considering any solar or any type of renewables on site?
Sean, you could speak for a moment. It's your favorite thing to do.
Good morning, Commissioners. No, actually, our property itself is not located in a high hazard flood zone up there. So actually, the solar, basically we applied all the green effect on the building itself, but then, we lift up all the mechanical, all the service areas onto the roof, and then it's basically we're going to get away from the actually problem with any flood zone, which is we can expect in 2050. I mean, if you see all the our slides, and then it shows the actually in maybe 30 years later, and probably we expect maybe 2% of the flow zone up there. So whether it's going to happen or not, but actually we designed, actually prepared all that kind of incidents later in the future. So I made all this cellar area, basement area is flood proof. Wet proof, the construction, we apply for that on that. So other than that, everything is going to be, up in the, above the grade level. So, well, unfortunately, we don't consider any kind of solar, the effect and that kind of things, if we don't expect anything. So, this time.
So thank you. Just to summarize, so green roofs,
yes,
energy efficiency,
that's
solar.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
So as long as we have to comply and more than the required efficiency on the green effect and energy conservations, and we design on that way. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good question.
No. Okay. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have for you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I see no members of the public here wishing to testify. So we'll close the hearing on calendar 13 and 14, 2118 Avenue U, and we will move on to the next item on today's agenda.
Borough of Queens, calendar number 15, 2724 College Point Boulevard Commercial Overlay, CD7 C220185ZMQ, public hearing, in the matter of application for a zoning map amendment concerning 2724 College Point Boulevard Commercial Overlay.
Great, thank you. I have 5 speakers here. I believe they're all part of the team. They are Richard LaBelle, Diana Diarpino, Victor Filetti, Hiram Rothkrug, and Amanda Iannotti. And they are on Zoom, so we will welcome them to present as soon as they are properly promoted, and welcome to all of you.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. So what we have before you today is the 2724 College Point Boulevard Commercial Overlay Rezoning. This is a very simple application, merely allowing for a C23 district to be imposed upon an R4 and R5B underlying residential districts. Next slide, please. So this is a zoning map amendment, which would again allow for a C23 overlay over these existing R4 and R5B zoning districts, which would affect primarily 3 lots and in a minor way, two lots, which would not really be able to take advantage of that. This would facilitate the development of a new 1-story commercial building, floor area of roughly 2,500 square feet. And this would allow for use group 6 eating and drinking establishment with an accessory drive-through, and would also allow for 2 existing commercial uses to be brought into conformance. Next slide demonstrates the site history. This site has been under BSA jurisdiction for over 70 years. Originally as a use group 16 gas station with variances granted and renewed over the years to allow for various uses. The most recent variance allowed for a bank at this site, and really is probably the reason that we're here, in that the BSA plans and materials, of course, are limited to what is exactly approved by BSA. And when the owner had issues in terms of both the use there and the layout, he chose to avail himself of a rezoning, which is why we're here. The next slide has the zoning map, which demonstrates that we are at the intersection of two M21 and one M11 districts. So this is a commercial district. The uses on all corners of this rather large intersection all reflect commercial uses. So indeed, it is far more appropriate from a context perspective to have a commercial rather than a residential use. The next slide is the tax map, which demonstrates that we will indeed be pushing the commercial overlay back roughly 135 feet. And as you can see, it would primarily affect these three lots from the corner going north along College Point Boulevard. Finally, the area map on the next slide demonstrates why this is particularly appropriate. College Point Boulevard here, an extra wide street and additional access from the street being a corner lot. So really, given the commercial uses in the area, given the longstanding commercial flavor of this corner, and given the access given by College Point Boulevard, it really is entirely appropriate for a commercial use to be here. We include typical maps and photos in the pages that follow. Feel free to page through those. But in essence, we are requesting and hopeful that the commission will support the unanimous decision of Community Board 7 Queens, as well as the Queensborough president, and approve the proposed commercial overlay rezoning. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. LaBelle. Question from Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering if you can discuss the extent to which, the vulnerability of the site to potential inundation has been, discussed. In what ways has this surfaced? What is your rationale in this regard? Or how are you planning to address that?
Can you repeat the first part of your question? I didn't quite hear that.
I'm interested in understanding the extent to which flooding and coastal inundation has been discussed, and how are you planning to anticipate that?
Sure. I would introduce Victor Folletti, the project architect, who can probably address that best. And I know that the Hiram Ruckert, the environmental consultant, is on as well. Victor, are you able to address that?
Yes, we would have a dry flood-proof basement in the building, and floor elevations of the building would be designed, above flood elevation for sure.
Can you be a little more specific in terms of, or can you provide additional information for us to sort of understand where is this and how high this will be in regards to the projections?
So the first floor would be approximately 2 to 3 feet higher than grade. We would provide handicapped access at the entrances. There are plans of the building as part of this presentation, and the basement would be dry flood proof.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Great. Mr. LaBelle, thank you. I see no other questions for you and the team here, and no members of the public wishing to testify today on calendar number 15. So we will close the hearing on this item, 2724 College Point Boulevard Commercial Overlay. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Chair.
And we will move on to the next item on today's agenda.
Borough Queens, calendar number 16, 5875 Queens Midtown Expressway rezoning, CD2, C230276, ZMQ, public hearing in the matter of an application for a zoning map amendment concerning 5875 Queens Midtown Expressway rezoning.
Great.
I'm recused in this matter.
Commissioner Rampersad is recused. Thank you, Commissioner. We have on behalf of the applicant, Joseph Sabaro, and whenever you are ready, you can go ahead and proceed.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good morning. My name is Joseph Sabaro from Ackerman LLP. We represent the applicant, Lucky Supply Holding LLC, in connection with this ULURP application. Next slide, please. The applicant operates a restaurant supply business at 5875 Queens Midtown Expressway in Maspeth, Queens. The project is located within the Maspeth Industrial Business Zone. The applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M14 zoning district to facilitate the enlargement of their existing one-story warehouse building. The proposed enlargement will enable the applicant to increase on-site inventory, thereby increasing efficiency and remaining competitive in the industry for years to come. It will reduce incoming deliveries and allow them to accommodate larger outgoing orders and reduce traffic in the area. It is also anticipated that the project will create approximately 10 new jobs in addition to the current 30 employees already there. Next slide, please. The subject site is designated as Lot 64 in Block 2656 and is outlined by the dashed red line. The rezoning area is between the Queens Midtown Expressway to the south and 54th Avenue and the Mount Zion and Calvary cemeteries to the north. It is predominantly commercial and manufacturing. Maurice Avenue forms the eastern boundary of the block. As I mentioned, the rezoning area is located in the Maspeth Industrial Business Zone, which is designated by the city to protect and grow industrial businesses. Next slide, please. This map shows the proposed rezoning area delineated with the black dotted lines mapping the M14. It encompasses lots 20, 64, and small parts of 65 and 115. The proposed rezoning to the M14 will result in a modest change in FAR from 1.0 to 2.0 and reduce parking requirements in order to facilitate the enlargement. Next slide, please. The zoning map amendment will enable the applicant to enlarge the existing warehouse vertically and horizontally to accommodate additional space for inventory, offices, 9 parking spaces, and a new loading berth. The enlarged building will have approximately 162,000 square feet of manufacturing floor area. It'll be 3 stories on the Queens Midtown Expressway, which will set back above the first floor by 20 feet. And the building will be 2 floors along the 54th Avenue frontage. The existing curb cut along 54th Avenue would remain, and a new 15-foot curb cut would be added to the south along the Queens Midtown Expressway to allow vehicles to exit the parking garage. Next slide, please. These are 2 renderings of the proposed development from the north and the south. Next slide, please. And these are the recommendations. Queens Community Board 2 granted us a conditional favorable, 33 in favor, 0 against. And the Queens Borough President also conditional favorable. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I'm wondering if you can, it sounds like you were about to tell us or finish telling us going over the recommendations, but also maybe your response to them. So what do you think is possible from what both the Community Board and the Board President are recommending?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. So, as I mentioned, Queens Community Board 2 gave us a conditional favorable. The condition was that the applicant is to include replacing or adding additional green infrastructure with the goal of increasing on-site stormwater retention. There were certain concerns from some members that flooding is an issue in the area. So the applicant has agreed to include bioswales around the property where possible to mitigate some of that. In addition, we're also including solar panels at our large second floor roof and EV charging stations for the parking, approximately 4, and additional on-site stormwater drainage.
Thank you so much. Is it possible to receive some of that information in writing?
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Osorio. Mr. Sabaro, thank you very much for your presentation. I have no more questions for you from the panel today, and I see no members of the public wishing to testify on calendar 16. So we will close the hearing on this item, 5875 Queens Midtown Expressway rezoning, and I will ask you, Madam Secretary, what other items, if any, we have on the agenda for today.
There is no other business before the Commission today, but I do have some public information to share. For those of you who are unable to or did not wish to testify, you can submit written testimony online by selecting this hearing on the upcoming meetings page of the NYC Engage portal, through DCP's website, or by mailing your comments to City Planning Commission, Calendar Information Office, 120 Broadway, 31st floor in New York, New York, 10271.
Great. Thank you very much. With appreciation to everybody who appeared today, members of the commission, and the staff of the department. Short and sweet. Time is 10:36. We are now adjourned. Thank you.